مأنة العالم هواية من كل النواحي تمأنت، يعني بس هذا الشارع وهذا أمان.
أمان نعم.
بس بذاك
في شارع سعدون يعني
أبد كل أمان وكل حاجة ما يعتاز، أنا ما أطلع.
نعم. فيما الله، مع السلامة.
Women in particular have suffered from the lack of safety. Saddam's regime was brutal, but it was secular. Since it was removed, religious fundamentalism has been on the rise. Many basic freedoms, from education to employments, are now denied, and violence against women in the name of honor and religion has become commonplace.
The collapse began as soon as the killing and looting started. Women began to feel frightened. Female students were afraid of continuing their education because they could be kidnapped. Several times, cars taking girls from home to the university were seized. Women were terrified, and even the men were afraid of allowing their wives or daughters to go to the market.
Dalala Rubai is a brave woman. She campaigns publicly, demanding support for women who have lost their home or income. So many sons and husbands have been displaced or killed, she's seeing more and more women taking desperate measures to survive.
In 2000, 200 prostitutes were murdered one way or another. That wasn't all of them, of course, and now there are thousands. Families have no choice but to sell their daughters so that they can eat. Why? Who's responsible? All those who took part in the war against Iraq.
Baghdad fell within 3 weeks of the invasion, but years later, law and order has yet to be fully restored. America's decision to disband the Iraqi army in May 2003 led to thousands of ex-soldiers having no money and no jobs, but plenty of weapons and fighting expertise. Overnight, they became willing recruits for the many armed cells ready to fight the occupation to the death. The Americans dismantled the army because they wanted to assure Iraqis the previous regime had been systematically removed. My old friend Sa'doun al-Janabi believes it was a catastrophic error.
What did you think of that moment? It was May.
It's the craziest and the most foolish mistake that they have ever made in their life. Because, one, if you want a country to be liberated, it should be boundaries defined.
And secure.
This is the second point. Who is going to secure the boundaries? Guards, police, army. If there is no army, it is up for grabs. Whoever wants to cross the country can cross it.
And that's when a lot of
that's where Al-Qaeda came in.
Exactly.
Sa'doun was my fixer in Baghdad. After a series of threats, he's now been forced to give up work and flee abroad in fear of his life. A big-hearted man. Now, he's not sure who to be most afraid of.
Rageh, believe me, you can never tell who's the police, who's the gangster. It's now got mixed up. Checkpoints are fake, for instance. If they are fake, how could you tell that this is a checkpoint which is authentic or it's fake? They have weapons, they have IDs, they are dressed up like police, and they are Iraqis. 5 years from now, and there is no security. 5 years from after liberation, and there is no liberation. 5 years after occupation, and there is relentless relentless effort to kill and kill and kill. Everybody is being killed now in the streets of Baghdad. Why?
Despite his gloomy assessment, it is possible to find Iraqis who still support the invasion and the overthrow of Saddam. Dr. Muwaffaq Rubai is Iraq's national security advisor. In a former life, he trained as a neurologist in the UK and is one of several former exiles who've returned to take public office in Iraq. But he had a surprise for me, another trophy from the overthrown regime.
Do you think he will sell it to me? Do you think Muwaffaq will sell it to me? If I can take it as excess luggage on Royal Jordanian?
Weighs 80 kilograms.
The last 5 years haven't dimmed Ar-Rubai's enthusiasm for regime change.
I'm still a double shock, not just to see you, but to see him. Almost 5 years to the day.
There was no other way of removing Saddam Hussein than using force. And if we have to go back 5 years ago,
Would you do it again?
I will do it exactly the same.
You still sound angry when you think about him.
Absolutely. Well, the crimes he has committed against the people of Iraq is unimaginable, honestly.
Muwaffaq Rubai was one of the government officials who attended Saddam's execution. He's been accused of taking the mobile phone footage, which clearly shows Saddam being taunted before his execution. To many, it resembled a lynch mob, but al-Rubai is unrepentant.
I think that day marked a historic day in Iraq, a new chapter in new Iraq. It was necessary, it should have been done, it is a brave decision. Right.
Because you know you were very criticized by saying words like that and for attending that execution. People said, well, how can Muwaffaq Rubai, a senior government minister, say things like that? You know,
why not attending that and make sure that it tried to make it as professional as we could? I have to admit, I'm the first to admit that there was mistake. There were mistakes happened in that on that day. But it was a brave decision, it was the right decision, and I think it has helped a great deal in reversing and in controlling the security situation in Iraq, in reversing and reverting and aborting the sectarian war in this country.
But the numbers tell a very different story. 5 years ago, I reported on one war between Iraq and coalition forces. Today, there are many wars taking place inside Iraq, between religious groups fighting for dominance, criminals battling for territory, and foreign fighters linked to Al-Qaeda waging jihad against British and American troops. The main insurgency is led by Sunni Muslims. Their so-called spiritual leader is Sheikh Harith Ad-Dari. He's wanted by the Iraqi government for inciting terrorism. He rarely appears on Western TV, so he's keen to establish the ground rules. Sheikh Ad-Dari claims that it's the right of insurgents to attack and kill coalition troops.
طبعا حق لأنهم محتلون وأنهم جاءوا غازين.
It's right because they are the occupiers. They came to Iraq as foreign invaders.
إلى بريطانيا ولا إلى أستراليا وإنما هذه.
The Iraqis didn't attack America, Britain or Australia. These armies came and occupied Iraq.
ألغت
They dismantled the state, the Iraqi army, took control of all Iraq's resources and government, and then destroyed it. But Iraqi people are human beings. They are a proud people. They can't just stand by with their arms folded when their people are being killed, locked up, tortured and humiliated.
But this is to describe what the insurgency is fighting against. But what's it fighting for?
We are not asking for anything that complicated or unreasonable. We want the army of occupation to leave Iraq.
That's unlikely to happen in the near future. Although Britain has reduced its troop numbers, the US government has increased its military presence in Iraq significantly in the last year, and there are no clear plans for a withdrawal.